Alright, the inspiration has struck me, so let's do this. But first, I have a couple disclaimers to make. The first is that I'm not exactly a lore expert, and that the main purpose of this video is to give the very basic idea of the key elements in the story. I want to make the comedy and main story ideas the focus of this video, since plenty of actual deep dives and wiki pages exist if you want a more detailed version. Second point I want to bring up is that while I will tell the story roughly in order of what happens in each chapter, there will be times where I break that order in order to explain why someone is doing something or who they are. If I told it exactly in chronological, then you would sometimes go 20 chapters without knowing why a villain is doing villain things, and so I want to make sure the story stays simple by bringing up info when it is relevant, even if you wouldn't know this yet as a player. Third point is that while I want to write this script and record it and make haha funny jokes, I'm not good at making videos at all, since I have no video editing software or experience. Because of that, just like my book 4 video, this entire thing will be entirely black screen, so feel free to play a game or something and just listen in the background while you do something else. Final point that I want to make is that this is part 1 story only, which has an ending. There is a part 1.5 story and part 2 story, as well as some side stories, but I know very little about them by comparison, and they aren't needed to understand the main characters of the Honkai series. For simplicity's sake, I probably would have excluded it even if I did know everything. One more little side note is that this game is called Honkai Impact 3rd, because there actually were 2 Honkai games before it, but they were never popular and so many people don't even know about it. They star all the same characters, but this game is still separate to where you don't need to play them to get what's going on here. It's basically like playing Honkai Star Rail without ever touching Honkai Impact 3rd, which is most people. I wanted to at least mention that, especially since the first game was called Fly Me to the Moon, and that is an interesting detail for later. But with all that said and done, let's get started. Our game opens up with our main protagonist, the captain, Kiana. Wait, what do you mean he's not the protagonist? But he's the player and the pilot of the ship, and oh, whatever, fine. Our actual protagonist is a girl by the name Kiana Kaswana. Wait, Kaswana? You mean like Finon from the hit game Honkai Star Rail? Oh my god. Anyway, we open up to Kiana and her friends at school. Her friends are Branya Seichik and Raiden Mei. Wait, Raiden Mei, you mean like Raiden A from Genshin Impact and Acheron from Honkai Star Rail, and then there's Branya from Honkai Star Rail? Holy moly, wait, I already made that joke. So basically these 3 friends, and that's friends in big quotes because they're definitely more than that, but they all go to this school called St. Freya High, and it's a school where they teach you to become a Valkyrie, not to be confused with the Among Us streamer. Now you're probably wondering, what is a Valkyrie then? Well, basically they're soldiers trained to fight the Honkai. What is the Honkai, you might ask? I don't actually know. And you might be like, but sorry, you're trolling. You're only making the Honkai lore video and you don't know what the Honkai is? Are you brain dead? Well, to answer that question, yes, I'm making a Honkai lore video, so I am in fact brain dead. Thanks for asking. Now, as for the other point, it's not actually my fault, because after 8 years of this game, no one actually knows for sure what it is somehow. There's a lot of theories online that are all quite fascinating, but nothing proven, so all you really need to know is that Honkai seems to be some sort of weird energy that turns people into zombies. They're these weird pink and white creatures that are kinda human looking sometimes, but don't talk and just fight things for no reason. That's the basic idea. So now you might be wondering, wait a minute, this is a high school, right? Why are we putting all our faith into some teenage lesbians? Well, you see, Super Mario Odyssey released on October 27, 2017, with good reviews from players and critics alike. However, in this video, I want to explain why I personally prefer Super Mario Galaxy, which came out. Anyway, Kiana and Branya are playing some video games, and Branya likes games with this yellow bunny called Homu, which is not important at all, but he's used as a mascot for the game constantly, so I'm mentioning it here. May walks in the room and she's like, Kiana, shouldn't you be training? And Kiana goes like, no, actually, I'm the strongest girly of all time. Please touch my muscles, May. I know you want to. And May gets mad at her for being a lazy degen, so they get in a lover's quarrel, which they will do many more times. So Kiana goes to class and keeps the same cocky attitude with her teacher, Murata Himiko. Oh my god, Himiko, like the standard banner character from my favorite video game, Honkai Star. So Kiana starts being like, I'm the greatest ever, you can't teach me anything, and Himiko's like, oh really? So they fight and Himiko smokes that Kiana pack and Kiana gets humbled real quick. We also learn that Teresa Apocalypse works at this school, and you aren't supposed to know this yet, but she is Kiana's aunt. The Kaswanas are a powerful family, and that's what gave Kiana such good combat training and got her all this arrogance and made it very easy for her to get into school. Now remember that Caslana is an important name because it is really, really important, and Kiana's family tree is psychotically massive with everyone being important to some extent, but I will keep a lot of that info out of this video so that it's not 10 hours long. So anyway, we go on with school life and we go on a mission and fight someone named Wendy who looks a lot like Venti from Genshin Impact and uses wind powers. Oh my god. Anyway, none of that is important. Point is, we resume our life on campus when all of a sudden the Honkai starts invading. Oh no, we're toast. So everyone suits up ready to throw some hands. But during the fight, Kiana starts acting a little sus, you know what I'm saying? So plot twist, she's possessed. Her eyes are changing color and now she's helping the Honkai beat the shit out of us. She gets May in a chokehold and May is like, Kiana, what the fuck? We're in public. Keep the kinky stuff for our alone time. And then she's like, shit, you're not the girl I love. Who are you? Kiana's being possessed by the Herrscher of the Void. Okay, I know that means nothing to you, so now I gotta explain what a Herrscher is. They're gods. That's basically it. They're just turbo strong people with god powers. It's very important, but that's all you gotta know about them. So now Kiana has Herrscher powers. She's stronger than even Himiko. Because, like, what are the humans gonna do against a literal god plus a Honkai army? So everyone's like, shit, and they retreat. Now that everyone from the school has gotten away, Kiana starts going on her own mission, going in and out of being the Herrscher of the Void. And so when she's herself, she starts learning some stuff about her parents, which is neat for lore reasons, but again, we're trying to keep this short, so I'll skip over it. We also meet Welt, who's the first Herrscher ever, so he's like a crazy baller. Wait, Welt, you mean like the guy from... Okay. Unfortunately, that joke is going to keep going on the entire video, I apologize. Anyway, now that Kiana is a Herrscher, we got a good guy team of May and Bronya and Himiko trying to save her, and a bad guy team with a girl named Rita, who is bad kinda, but like not really, so we'll call her an anti-hero, I guess. Rita is like, I'm gonna go capture her and get that power, and May's all like, we gotta save my girlfriend. I was gonna propose when we turn 18 in a couple years. So everyone's on a wild goose chase trying to find Kiana and not get killed by her or the Honkai. Himiko is the one who ends up finding her, and so they duke it out in a 1v1 match. Himiko is crazy strong, but still gets beaten because she can't beat a god like that. But before she dies, she injects something into Kiana to help her break free from the mind control. Before it can take effect, Himiko gets killed, and it's very sad. You should watch the cutscene on YouTube. Rest in spaghetti, never forgetty. I'll link the cutscene in the description. So yada yada, some stuff happens, and Kiana essentially does the thing that the Hulk does in Avengers Endgame, where he's like this cursed fusion so that he can be smart and strong at the same time. She does that, and she's half Herrscher, half human, with like a blue and yellow eye. And so she has it under control now, kind of, but not actually, okay? So now Kiana's trying to control her power to fight the Honkai, but she's still new to it and has to learn. She eventually gets kidnapped by Rita, who's working for this super hot chick named Jackal, who never became playable because she's brown, rest in peace. But you see, Kiana was actually faking it for the bid and is strong enough to just break free. And so she does that and goes, see ya, and Rita's like, well, there goes that idea. Why did I even bother writing this in the script? So Kiana gets her freedom, and we skip to a B plot going on, where Bronya is going to the Sea of Quanta. What is the Sea of Quanta, essentially? I'm glad you asked your viewer, who in fact did not ask. It's basically the plot device area. You see, some characters like Himiko die in this story, but if she dies, how can she be in the gacha with a new alter of a story presence? And so they created this concept called bubble universes, which is basically just the writer saying, here are different worlds where things ended differently with the same people, so we can have them come back if they die. The Sea of Quanta basically holds all these bubble universes inside it. Some people actually even believe that Genshin and Honkai Star Rail, and maybe even Zenless Zone Zero, could all be bubble universes within the Sea of Quanta, and wouldn't that be something? So Bronya goes there to try to learn anything she can about the Honkai, and she goes with Teresa and her girlfriend Seely from the hit game Honkai Star Rail, and two twin girls that are literally not important at all, so I'm not even going to talk about them. Also, Bronya and Seal kiss in the manga. It's pretty hot, and it got taken down because China government hates her gay ass. But anyway, they go there and they do a bunch of shit that doesn't need to be explained. I just wanted you to know Bronya and Teresa were actually doing something this whole time. Meanwhile, Kiana has her showdown with the Herrscher of the Void and manages to finally suppress it. But that means she also doesn't have the god power anymore. Keep in mind this is only temporary and this power is still deep within her for now. Back to the Bronya plot, they end up fighting a big old thingy mabobber down in the Sea of Quanta, and in the process, Bronya puts on the big girl pants, walks in, hops on a motorcycle for some reason, and becomes our first character to become a Herrscher on her own merit without being possessed, so good on her. Meanwhile, Kiana ends up being kidnapped again by Rita, but not brought to Jackal this time. Instead, Rita brings her to her squad mate named Durandal and meets another girl called Raven. Now, neither of those names sound familiar, but all you gotta do is take off Raven's hood and put a purple streak in Durandal's blonde hair from one of her skins, and oh my god, it's Natasha and Serval from famous turn-based game. Okay, so basically Durandal is all like, Kiana, you gotta lock in and control this Herrscher power, it's still in you. And we needed to fight the Honkai. And Kiana's like, alright, bet. I'll be in a fight. And Kiana gets her ass clapped, and not in like the lesbian strap-on way. So she's like, fine, help me train to be strong and use the power. Meanwhile, Raven has a bunch of kids she adopted, kinda, sorta, that are hiding from the Honkai. And she meets up with May and is like, look at all these kids. They're all dying from the Honkai. We gotta do something. And May is like, so true, queen, but I care most about Kiana because they have my future wife on God. So May meets up with Kiana finally after a hell of a lot of chapters. And basically they want someone to become a Herrscher that can fight the Honkai, like I said. So Kiana's like, May, I'm sorry. I gotta dump you because the world needs me. So we can't do the bedroom ham sandwich anymore. I'm gonna become God and save the world. And May is all like, no, Kiana, you'll for sure die if you do that, so I'm going to become the Herrscher instead. And they get into a lover's quarrel again in the span of like 10 minutes, because of course they do. Here we get some backstory on how these two got close. Where basically May was going to fall and Kiana helped her up, so they became friends. And that is literally what happens, but I always interpret it as being kind of like a metaphor for the fact that she sees Kiana is a rock she relies on and needs more than anything. So May becomes the Herrscher of Thunder, and oh my god, she's got a big sword and a purple circle, like Raiden A, and horns like Acheron in that one trailer. Oh my god, I'm gonna pee my... So now May is all badass and powerful and serving hard, like the queen she is, and Kiana's all like, fuck. May looks hot, like she just aged 20 years in the span of 1 second. And that's because a long time has passed since the start of the game, and they didn't update her character model to look older until now. But even if she looks like a baddie, Kiana's got to stop her from fighting the Honkai. So Kiana's like, I'm going to stop you, May. And May just says nothing, beats the shit out of her, no problem. Aura farms, and it's a real good cutscene you should watch on YouTube. I will link that in the description. But now May is off to destroy the Honkai, and Kiana's all sad that they might never scissor again. So finally Bronya shows up and she's like, what's up guys, I'm a Herrscher now, don't worry about it. And Kiana's like, Bronya, walk in, we gotta save May. And Bronya's like, alright, bet. Now Durandal and Rita do some cool stuff, none of which is actually all that important, so I'm gonna skip over it. It just gives some lore stuff on them you don't need to know unless you make Honkai lore videos on the internet. Wait, that's what I'm doing. Anyway, Kiana and Bronya are off to find May. And they work together with this chicken fighter girl named Fuhua, who's the best side character in the game. Throughout the journey, we get some lore on Fuhua, which is not that important, but it is a little bit because Herrscher moments, so I'll explain it briefly. Okay, so basically Fuhua is this Giga Immortal who's lived an absurd amount of time, and throughout the centuries has taken on a bunch of different appearances and titles and whatnot. Just like most stories of immortals, this naturally makes her go kind of sad and crazy, having to constantly start a new life with new people, which leads to her splitting off into two beings, the Fuhua we know, who's chill and baller, and the Herrscher of Sentience, aka Senti, who is like her other half that's batshit insane. Now, if this sounds a lot like Aninkos from Fire Emblem Fates to you, it should, because this is basically the exact same plot. So Senti shows up and she starts threatening us and being a big old meanie. And Kiana's all like, you're not Fuhua, she would never act like you. And Senti is all like, actually I am Fuhua, and I'm stronger than her, so I am just better, and fuck you, L plus ratio. And so this goes on for quite some time of Senti trying to cope that she is the real and better Fuhua. And eventually gets super pressed that we don't like her, so she starts trying to kill us. And Fuhua tries locking herself away forever because it will stop Senti. And Kiana goes, no way, you're way too hot to be leaving me behind. I need you as a side piece in case Mei dies. And Fuhua's like, okay, fine, we'll beat her the old-fashioned way. And they do beat her in a baller-ass cutscene that lasts like 8 minutes with fire music. You should watch it on YouTube. I'll link it in the description. So anyway, now that that's done with, we move away from the Kiana A plot and the Mei B plot and move into a Seal C plot, because every character needs a backstory. Now this is not that important either, but it's another hairshare moment, so I'll talk about it. Basically, Seal had a really bad life situation and had zero guts as a little girl to stand up for herself, which manifested into a second Seal we call Veliona, who's a lot more aggressive and mean, to serve as a sort of defense mechanism for Seal. However, because she's a lot more rude, she starts hibernating inside Seal's brain so as not to disrupt her life as the peaceful, shy girl. Now that Seal needs help protecting Bronya from the Honkai, she asks Valonia for help, and basically Valonia goes all emo saying stuff like, no one likes me, so I'm just gonna hide forever. Now I'm gonna go listen to Green Day and My Chemical Romance playlists on repeat. And Seal is like, I don't hate you, you're my sister. And Valonia is all tsundere, like, fine, I'll help you since you're so useless without me. It's not like I like you or anything, Baka Seal. So anyway, this leads into the A, B, and C plots all coming together, where Mei is using her new hairshare powers and goes into this place where there's all these like doll puppet things, which are our first instance of Honkai beings that can actually speak. And they talk about some stuff, and Mei goes along with it. But then Kiana and Bronya and all of them also go down there. However, before Kiana can take on the puppets, she has to finally defeat the Hairshare of the Void within her. They separate and duke it out in an all-out brawl where Kiana manages to win. After this, we get some backstory on what the Hairshare of the Void actually is. Basically, she's a girl by the name of Siren, who was part of an abusive adoption center and eventually snapped, which led to her getting the Hairshare powers and revolting against them. This bad experience made her hate mankind, and so she used her Hairshare power to possess Kiana with the goal of helping the Honkai destroy humanity. Got all that? Cool, because we get a lot more from Siren, including what she looks like, but it's all in Bubble Universe event side stories, so we won't be covering it. Get fucked, idiot. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. I love you. Now that Kiana has basically beat her inner demon, it is time for her and the girlies to take on these puppets. However, there's just too many of them, and they're getting completely shit on. This leads to a baller-ass cutscene you should watch on YouTube that I will link, where they fight a million of these little shits that kind of look like scuffed versions of Trigger from the hit video game Zenless Zone Zero. And Kiana has this real sad thing happen where she has a vision of the school with Himiko there, and she's all like, I'm so sorry I killed you, bro. And Himiko's like, all good, Kiana, but now you gotta lock in and beat the shit out of the Honkai for me. And Kiana's like, bet. And so Kiana does a Dragon Ball Z power-up and becomes the Hairshare of Flame Scion, and uses Himiko's big fire claymore. Oh, that's cute. And then Kiana deals the final blow, and Himiko shows up in the flames, and it's real sad. Highly recommend watching. So now they broke out, and Seal is like, fuck, I need to get in there. So her and Valonia lock in together and become a Hairshare where they swap between the two at will for fights, which is really fun to play as, actually. But Kiana only got rid of the puppets right by them, and Mei still has some by her. And then the puppets are all like, Mei, join us, because you're mad at your ex-girlfriend, Kiana. All you ever do is fight. And then the big twist is power of friendship, and Mei goes like, nah, I knew they'd be here, because Kiana and I are still fucking on the down low. Joke's on you. And the puppets are like, fuck, now we gotta kill them all. So finally the trio of Kiana, Mei, and Bronya are all together as Hairshares, and we keep fighting all these things. But they're just infinite, essentially, so we hop on the Hyperion and bail out. The Hyperion is our ship, by the way, and the player is the captain of the Hyperion, but, like, it's not important. So we get out of there and we start getting some big boy lore that's important, so lock in for a little bit. Okay, so basically we've known about this guy named Otto for several chapters now, but I didn't really need to talk about him until now, because Senti choked him a few chapters ago. But he has like a billion clones, so it didn't matter, so I didn't explain that in the Fuhua section. So why did I even write this in the script? Anyway, let's talk about Otto now. So basically he is Lelouch from the hit video game, his full name is Otto Apocalypse, which should sound familiar because that's Teresa's last name, who is Kiana's aunt, which means by extension Otto is also related to Kiana, kinda, sorta. It's complicated. Now, why is everyone related to Kiana, you might ask? Well, you see, Call of Duty is a game series that has existed for a long time now. The most recent entry is Black Ops 7, which released on... Okay, so this is where shit starts getting a little complicated, so buckle your seatbelts for a minute. I promise I will keep it very simple as much as I can. Okay, so basically Otto has been around for centuries also, and is the craziest simp of all time for a girl by the name of Kalin Castellano, which, you guessed it, is an ancestor of Kiana. Now, based on that and knowing Teresa is related to Kiana, you probably expect that Colin and Otto fell in love and had kids and lived happily ever after. Psych! This is Honkai Impact, baby. Colin was only trying to fuck girls, because that's all the bitches be doing in this game, buddy. Don't forget it. So Otto and Colin are great friends, and Otto is simping, but Colin wants to fuck Yai Miko from the spin-off game Genshin Impact, who is called Yai Sakura in this game. This causes Otto to become a little dick incel who posts on 4chan about how all girls ever do is be bisexual and eat hot shit. This is not relevant lore at all, but it's so goofy that I have to mention it here. Otto is so crazy that he uses his big brain to create a video game where him and Colin are married and the villain of the game is Yai Sakura, so that whole bit about Colin wanting to fuck Yai, it's not even a bit, I'm actually being serious. But anyway, Otto is still here all these centuries later and Colin is not. So he made his life work reviving Colin so he can fuck her. Kind of like that one simp guy from the Fire Emblem Three Houses DLC who wanted to fuck Violet's mom really bad. But now you're wondering, okay, Colin and Otto didn't get it on. So how are Teresa and Kiana related? And now here's the real big bombshell that's going to make you fall out of your seat. Teresa is a clone of Colin, which makes it so she has the Castellano genetics despite the different last name. Now here's the biggest clone bombshell of the whole game. Durandal actually is the original Kiana Castellana, who got her memories wiped by Otto, and her hair changed from white to yellow due to a surgery treatment from an injury long ago. And so the Kiana we know today is actually a clone of her that was created to become the Hersher of the Void. That makes them sisters, sort of, so Kiana calls her that after she finds out, and I think that's cute. Now you're probably wondering, why are there so many clones in this game? Well, you see, Otto is like this turbo genius, so he makes all these clones of a bunch of things, including himself, to achieve his goals, and they don't even know they're clones. He also cryo-freezes people for centuries, sometimes to save them, or so they can do something for him in the future. Now, I bet you're wondering how any of this is even possible or makes sense, or why I didn't mention any of it until now. Well, it's because I fucked your mom. Alright, so now that we got the full Hersher trio together, it's time to stop Otto because he's being big evil. We're on our way to stop him when we get interrupted by a girl named Su Shang. Oh my god, you mean like the girl from... So anyway, we have to get through Su Shang, who is the daughter of someone Fu Hua trained a long time ago, but exists this far in the future because Otto preserved her through cryo-freezing. Does any of this matter? Not really, but I'm talking about it anyway, okay? So Kiana and friends manage to keep Su Shang distracted fighting other people and proceed towards Otto and do the big time epic fight and win. Then Otto walks around limping really slowly, reminiscing about the past for unironically like 15 minutes in an unskippable section of the game where you just hold forward, which sucks, but you gotta get through it. Keep in mind a lot of sections in this game, especially this one, are a lot longer than I'm letting on, and this video is just to explain the key events as concisely as possible. Now it is time for the Elysian Realm arc of the story. Now you probably just heard the name Elysia and shit your pants because it's like Cyrene from Honkai Star Rail. Oh my god, my favorite game. I'm so excited I'm gonna piss. But anyway, what if I told you this entire arc of the game is 3 chapters of open zone that go on in total for no joke like 30 hours if you read all the dialogue in it. It's super terminology and lore heavy, and you meet a lot of new characters in a very short span of time, despite most of the game being a very small cast up to this point. I tell people all the time that this to me is where the story kind of falls off, because it really does feel very out of place. But hey, Elysia makes Hoyo $1 million when she's even mentioned, so clearly she worked for other people. But anyway, since this part of the game is so long and it's an arc that is literally never mentioned again once it ends, I'm going to talk about it, but very, very briefly. So basically we all meet up back at the Hyperion after beating Otto. and May splits off from the group and ends up in the Elysian realm. Now you might be asking yourself, why does May leave them again after they were just reunited, and why is this realm even here to begin with? Well, you see, Xbox's main selling point, Game Pass, has recently gone up in price. In this video, I want to analyze what this could mean for the future. So May enters the realm and meets Elysia. And Elysia goes like, hey girl, you're cute. I'm dating this girl named Eden, and you're dating Kiana, right? So why don't we do some casual scissoring as each other's side hoes? But May isn't having any of her 40 nonsense and meets the other members. And don't worry, I'll spare you the joke right now that almost all these people are also characters in Honkai Star Rail. You're welcome for sparing you. Now, some of these people we have never met before, while others are familiar faces, such as Colin, Yai, and Fuhua, but in one of her past looks. That is because the Elysian realm contains heroes from centuries ago, some of which are still alive like Fuhua, but most are dead by now. These are the 13 Flame Chasers, and they're really fun for events and merch. Yay, capitalism, I love spending money. But the only other Flame Chaser I want to draw specific attention to is Kevin Caslana, since again, you guessed it, he is related to Kiana, and is still alive in the present and will become very, very important after this arc. But anyway, a lot, and I mean a lot of yapping, and things happen. And it ends up in a big boy fight scene with the Flame Chasers where Elysia does a bunch of cool shit in a great cutscene you should watch on YouTube that I will link. Okay, so after the fight, it comes to an end, which means all those who died years ago like Elysia will never be seen again. In fact, once May leaves the realm, she finds Kevin there who tells her there will never be another Elysia. Just kidding, she's the most popular character, so she came back in a bubble universe and is Cyrene, so fuck you for caring she died. Haha, I love capitalism. So now that all the funny business is over, May joins back up with Kiana and everyone and doesn't explain anything of the last 30 hours of content we just went through. All we know is that we gotta defeat Kevin. Now that leads us into the next chapter, which explains why Kevin is now a bad boy. You see, I'm about to tell you something so absurdly ridiculous you won't even believe it, so here it goes. Kevin's lore begins with a girl by the name of Dr. May, and yes, it is spelled the same way as Raiden May, and she also looks almost exactly the same just with glasses. So now you're probably wondering, wait a minute, this would have been centuries ago. Why is there someone with the same look and name as May that long ago, and how are they connected? Well, you see, it's actually quite simple. Kingdom Hearts 3 was a complex video game with very mixed receptions for its stunning visuals, but lackluster. Okay, all jokes aside, this is the biggest mystery in the entire series. Even the wiki for Honkai does not know how Raiden May and Dr. May are related, so it's not my fault. If I were to take a guess, it's probably some auto-cloning bullshit again, but it's never confirmed, so just don't worry about it. Okay, please, I'm begging you. If you want my opinion, I think this dynamic between Kevin and Dr. May was only created to be like, look guys, it's May and a Caslana dating and being in love, just as a parallel to Kiana and May being in love, if that wasn't obvious enough at this point, because your eyes were just closed the entire game, I guess, I don't know. So basically, Kevin is just a simp like Otto, except he cared about things other than Dr. May, such as the Honkai. And he didn't get friend zoned because he managed to find the one girl in the series that is not gay. Lucky for him. However, her death combined with the Honkai takeover left him to become a very bitter person with the goal of destroying the Honkai at any cost. This doesn't sound like a villain since the Honkai is in fact bad, but the problem is where I said at any cost. He is someone willing to put innocent lives on the line if it means ending the Honkai, and we heroes don't like that one bit. So now we got our trio back ready to take on the last huge human threat. Finally, the stage is set and we're ready to beat the final boss. Kevin, after all these years, is ridiculously strong and was already considered the biggest powerhouse even back when the other Flame Chasers were alive. Now you know why the Caslana name was such a big deal, ever since the beginning. Even as Hershers, the trio is not strong enough to beat him, and so our three Powerpuff Girls, Kiana, May, and Branya, all get their final Hersher forms that make them absurdly overpowered in every way possible, even strong enough to contain the Honkai. Wow. They also get extra bonuses when you play all three of them in the team together in a special ultimate animation, so that's fun. With this new power, they defeat Kevin, and Kiana uses her power to suppress the Honkai for good. If her power ever fades, humanity would now be able to prepare for a future eruption. For now, however, Kiana is more than strong enough to keep it at bay, and all the story content in the game ever since has no longer had Honkai Beast's enemies. However, there is just one catch. Kiana must go to the moon and stay there in order to maintain this seal. Now, that might not seem important to you, but because I am a loser with no life, I know that the first game ever by Hoyo to start Kiana was called Fly Me to the Moon, and so this ending made me want to cry and piss and shit with how peak that reference was. And so our story concludes with a bittersweet tale, where our world is saved, but Kiana cannot be a part of that future she fought for. That is the end. Kinda. Like I mentioned earlier, this game has had a lot of story content since the end of Part 1. Parts 1.5 and 2 feature some characters from Part 1, and Kiana is now reunited with May and Branya on Mars in Part 2's story, so she won't feel so lonely anymore. There is also a bunch of event side stories and bubble universes, as well as a 2-part series about May and Branya after defeating the Honkai with a new self-insert protagonist. However, like I said, this video was made to cover just Part 1, so that mostly friends of mine who play Genshin and HSR have some context on who these characters were originally. As much as the multiverse aspect of Hoyo is sometimes lazy and a detriment, it does have its cool moments where they get to make references that fans really enjoy. Part of that effort to establish this big multiverse is what makes these games enjoyable to many and makes the process of playing each game at the same time feel very rewarding. It takes a lot of communication between writing teams to make these things happen, and you can tell they really love these characters that they've made, and now so do I. Kiana, I have always said, is my favorite gacha protagonist, where her journey from being selfish and arrogant to someone who is willing to leave the world behind if it means she can save it is such a beautiful character development that really flows naturally throughout the events of the game. Despite so many characters living for so long or becoming gods, they all feel very human. They are all flawed and try their best to achieve their goals, no matter how hopeless it might seem. They get a lot of time to grow, since the game maintains a very small roster for the entire duration of the story compared to most gachas, and made the business model around alts of these characters to avoid making the cast too cluttered. I'm making this video on one of my last days playing this game, since I've started to lose interest in its most recent patches. But I do believe this Part 1 story is very special, despite how silly and complex it can get at times, and it will hold a special place in my heart for a long time. I hope you enjoyed this style of video. This is my first time doing one with this many jokes in it, so let me know if it worked well for you, and I'll see you next time I decide to upload it in like 5 years from now, knowing me. Take care.